I have never played Animal Jam in my entire life. In fact, I'd never even heard of it until you guys were screaming about it in the comments, so I was finally like, okay, maybe I should have a look into this. But Animal Jam is essentially like any other social media platforming games that exist. It's like Movie Star Planet, Club Penguin, Moshi Monsters, all of those, but it's actually like targeted and made for young children, so you can already imagine where this is going, because like all of the other topics that we've spoken about, Animal Jam is no exception from the rule of it having probably a horrendous dark side attached to it. So today I thought we'll have a deep dive into the horrors of the game that is known as Animal Jam. So sit back, relax, and let's just get straight into the video. So first of all, if you're like me and had genuinely no idea what Animal Jam was, maybe I'm getting old, I don't know, I don't want to think about it too much, but Animal Jam is a massively multiplayer online game developed by a company known as WildWorks, and it's recommended for children up to the age of 12, not above 12, up to the age of 12. So you can imagine all of the young, very young children that are playing this game. And you'd think, well, okay, fair enough, this game probably comes with a lot more, you know, safety precautions in place, you know, to protect those really young children, but this video is going to prove that it's probably not the case. Also, I've just realised the horrendous skin colour difference between my actual face and my body. That's because I'm trying to gothify, but oh well. Now, Animal Jam was launched in 2012 in collaboration with the National Geographic Society. And as of late 2020, there are 3.3 million monthly active users and a lifetime total of 130 million registered players across 200 countries across the globe. And essentially, Animal Jam is the same as any other game that has the, you know, any other MMO out there. You know, like Movie Star Planet, Club Penguin, you get a character, you customise it, there's memberships, there's items you can buy, there's lucky dips, all that stuff. It's the same thing. But in this game, you get to customise an avatar like a wolf, a bunny, a tiger, or a fox, and then explore a colourful virtual world, which is known as Jammer. The world itself is filled with all these different regions to explore, a load of different mini games, pets that you can adopt in the game, clothes, accessories that you can buy, players' houses that you can decorate, and educational exhibits that teach children about wildlife and conservation. Which sounds great, you know, what a fun time for a child under the age of 12. What could possibly go wrong? Players can chat within the game, trade items, and roleplay with others in safe, moderated spaces. Developers claim that they actually put a lot of effort into child safety, including filtering the chat systems, parental controls, and strict rules to prevent sharing personal information online. Which I will say is a lot more than what any of the other MMOs do, that's for sure. However, it still also has the option of like subscription-like memberships where if you pay a certain amount of money a month or, you know, whatever, you get exclusive deals or like special items that regular players can't get. So all in all, it's nothing we haven't heard of before. We've seen this, you know, blueprint, this concept, many different times. So what makes this one different? Well, to me, Animal Jam is different, or praises itself on being different, because it's made for children under the ages of 12. So you'd think that it would be super duper safe, you know, there'd be no way that any predators or anything fishy can bypass the filters. Well, my friends, of course you'd be wrong, as that's why I'm making this video. Because while Animal Jam was designed as an educational, kid-friendly game, that, you know, nothing could go wrong, nothing bad could happen, well, it quickly turned into something that, the creators probably weren't expecting. Because within the game, you can take part in things such as trading items, as well as role-playing and hunting for rares, which is like the rare items. And one of the biggest pillars in Animal Jam culture is the obsession with rare items. Like, this is a thing in other games as well. I think this is quite big in Roblox, but I feel like it really started here on Animal Jam. So essentially, trading within the game is a little bit of an economy on its own, with players inventing elaborate ways or value systems to trade their items. And this economy is entirely community driven, which means that children, that's right, children would get into arguments over fair trades because, as you can imagine, people were just ripping other kids off. And then, because of how rare the valuable items became, scamming became a huge problem within the game, and it's still one of like the big red flags within Animal Jam, because players started to trick other players into unfair trades with fake promises such as like, if you trade this item with me, I'll give you it back and double it, or even just straight up fake giveaways. Now you can imagine the 6-year-old on the family computer that's like, hell yeah, let's do it. And you can imagine the trauma that they receive when they don't get their item back. And for a child, losing your finest prized spike collar can be absolutely devastating. It felt like an actual real-life financial ruin. And this was quite a common thing that happens on Animal Jam. Another massive part of Animal Jam culture is the role-playing aspect, and these clans eventually form on people that want to roleplay, with Animal Jam or Jammer becoming sort of, you know, this unspoken social hierarchy within the game, as players with the rare items, the flashy looks, or popular YouTube channels were seen as famous jammers, and they would be able to essentially do whatever they wanted in the game. And recognising them in the game was like meeting a celebrity. But outside the game as well, other scams would begin to pop up, such as like claiming free spikes, diamonds, or memberships, which I assume spikes is like the currency within the game. And as you can imagine, lots of children will fall for this. They'll see it on like adverts on other websites or apps or whatever, and then they end up clicking it and they just either get scammed or get nothing from it. And many of these websites that actually pop up, or you know, this link's created, children press this link, they go on, lots of these were designed to sort of clone and steal real life accounts. And I don't know about you guys, this happens in any of these games, and as a child it feels like actual theft. There's that video of that kid being scammed on Roblox which went around a little while ago, and it's genuinely the most heartbreaking thing I've ever heard in my entire life, because the little kid says, "You are the worst friend ever," and it genuinely like, how could you do that? How could you do that? How could you do that to someone? That's so sad. But it got so bad to the point where scam awareness actually became its own subculture, and like people were genuinely like creating forums to spread awareness about being scammed on these websites, particularly Animal Jam. Some players would even make YouTube channels dedicating to exposing these scammers and just creating those like scammers get scammed videos. But if you're a grown-ass man or grown-ass woman or grown-ass person playing these games and scamming children, I want you to take a long hard look at your life and yourself as a person and feel, you know, what do you get out of it? What do you get out of it? And if you say making a child cry, check yourself into a mental institution. Maybe see a therapist. I don't know, I think you've got some issues that you need to work on. But it gets worse, because in October 2020, the company WildWorks actually made the horrendous discovery that a third-party vendor's server had been breached. Now, essentially, what that meant was the theft of approximately 46 million Animal Jam account records. That's right, Animal Jam had their data breached and all of their accounts basically stolen, with this third party taking things such as email addresses, usernames, passwords, birth years, full names, and billing addresses. Now, luckily, I mean, take what you can get. I mean, luckily no credit card data was stolen, but I don't know, something about, you know, someone being able to have access to their child's entire information, including their address, is definitely concerning. More concerning about a credit card account. That's just me though. But as you can imagine, this hack stirred up major concern, because don't forget, this website was aimed and created for children at the ages 12 and under. And it gets even worse, because while researching this, I also came across isolated reports of adults using grooming tactics to, you know, manipulate or trade or, you know, interact with children, which creates a serious safety risk. There was one account on Reddit which described an incident that occurred in early 2021 involving a user named Sparky Boy Ben. Now, according to the post, quote, an adult Sparky Boy Ben scammed a kid using the trust game, saying that they would be BFFs and they'll get all the clothing and all the items. But then after that, it was revealed that this character, Sparky, had been grooming the child to do more things to get their items back. However, luckily the parent in this situation ended up intervening and blocked and reported the user and disabled trading and gifting for their child's safety. Now, Animal Jam HQ was actually notified of this incident. However, this Reddit post then goes on to say that they haven't actually seen anything happen from this. There was no response from the game's moderation team or anything like that. Now, beyond this incident, several other Reddit users have come forward expressing, similar concerns or having similar experiences on Animal Jam with that similar red flag behaviour and just predators in general. Now, of course, parents can mitigate risks by using chat filters and actually paying attention as to what your child is doing on the computer, but it kind of works both ways as well. To keep children safe, parents need to do their bit, but Animal Jam HQ as well as predators also need to be caught and actually face consequences for what they've done, which never normally happens. Now, because Animal Jam was marketed as this safe educational game that, was co-created with National Geographic, parents expected this to be some wholesome environment where their children would genuinely be safe. They expected this to be more like a digital zoo rather than a social network. But because it has this social networking aspect to it, Animal Jam falls into the same category as Movie Star Planet, Club Penguin, Moshi Monsters. Doesn't matter what age it's targeted at. If it's targeted at children, predators will be on there. That's just how the world works, unfortunately. It's disgusting, it's upsetting, but it is reality. But parents were not happy about this, and you know what parents get like when they see things they don't understand? They turn it into a bit of a hysteria, and that is exactly what happened with Animal Jam. Because parenting sections of major outlets like the Washington Post ended up running like stories about Animal Jam, and Animal Jam being their child's, quote, first encounter with the icky internet. This article, which is still up, you can go and read it, actually details how seemingly innocent this game is, but it can still expose children to scamming, deceit, strangers who perhaps don't have the best interest of children at heart. And Animal Jam is also, been spotted on discussion forums like Mumsnet or Parent Zone, and these parents describe Animal Jam as, quote, addictive, unsafe and too social, which, I'm not being funny, if you as a parent are using forums in the big year of 2025, I don't know what to tell you. And within this forums, parents swapped horror stories about hacked accounts and strange messages and their kids losing or taking their credit cards and spending real life money on this game. And it got to the point that school districts actually ended up getting involved, with teachers and IT staff circulating, memos and sending out letters about the dangers of Animal Jam and what to look out for when their children use the internet. Which is fair. I mean, I'm not against children using the internet. I am against parents not watching what their children are doing. I think children using the internet can be a really nice bonding experience for children and parents. Doing it together, having a laugh, seeing what's out there. It can be great. It can be a great tool, but don't leave children to their own devices. Just check in every now and then, Parents also had the anxieties of their children meeting strangers online, because when you combine the chat function and the ability to make the private dens and the parties, and the fact that most players were children, it created the perception that predators could exploit this space, and they're right, they do that. Even if actual cases of grooming were rare compared to the millions of children playing normally, the idea that it was happening was enough to fuel this fire that Animal Jam was this like horrible place for children. But it doesn't stop there, because WildWorks themselves actually have a pretty mad reputation, because throughout 2010s WildWorks was actually seen in quite a positive light as being like this company that made this MMO, like everything's absolutely fine, it's safe, they put a lot of effort into it, good for them, you know, good for them. But as the years went on, they started to turn into a company. And when I say they turned into a company, I mean they got greedy, essentially. I don't know, making a game that's targeted for children ages 12 and under, but also making them pay money for real life items, you know, it grinds a couple of gears, mine included. Seasonal bundles, constant new shop exclusive, and of course having the members only tab is certainly a way to rinse kids and parents alike completely dry, because parents want to make the kids happy, and what do kids want? Money. Kids want money, which is why I'm not having any. And it was clear that WildWorks was, you know, prioritising profit over player base. And then as Animal Jam began to age, the, you know, customer support and like everything else, the involvement from the company just started to slow down and become less effective. But then in 2020, WildWorks wanted to branch out. Now this sounds fair enough, because they wanted to make something for an older audience, for teenagers. So think Animal Jam, but they made it darker, edgier, and more teen-oriented, and this was called Feral. Interesting name choice, I will say. And instead of cute animals like bunnies and cats and tigers, players could customise mythical feral creatures and explore a gothic fantasy world, which, you know, doesn't sound too horrendous, I guess. But as quick as it came up, in 2022 they actually announced that Feral would be closing down. And that was because despite Feral having this, like, you know, optimistic beginning, it just never took off in the same way that Animal Jam did. And this was a pretty big, you know, slap in the face for the Feral community, because they'd spent money on this game. They'd sunk hours and sunk real-life hard-earned money into this game, and it was just being shut down. It was all for nothing, essentially. And then shortly, literally months after shutting down Feral, the company WildWorks began to branch out in NFTs. A project called Cinder. That's right, as you can imagine, the timing for this was disastrous, because what do you mean you just shut down this game that people had put money into to then go into NFTs, which is like the worst thing you could do, and especially a game on animals and animal rights and conservation, making NFTs that are terrible for the environment. The math isn't mathing, you know? It's not making sense. Players saw it as if WildWorks had just dumped their community to chase crypto profits, which was a thing, I guess, back in the 2020 whatever year it was. And people just felt like this went against everything that WildWorks had stood for, which, yeah, you don't say. And the backlash was so intense that the CEO of WildWorks actually ended up issuing an apology, stating that, quote, the NFT launch was mishandled and that they had, and I quote, failed to read the room. You don't say. But despite Animal Jam being built as this colourful educational escape into an animal kingdom that children would be safe from and, you know, would have fun and it would be great, it was this great thing, the legacy Animal Jam ended up carrying is many that parents and former players just can't quite ignore. I think that many children will remember the horror of being scammed out of their favourite items, not to mention the fact that they had a massive data breach and the questionable corporate choices that the company ended up making, which was inevitable anyway because it's a company. They're not your friend. In the end, people will remember it for, you know, how it was. This funny little kids game that holds a lot of nostalgia to them, but deep down there was definitely some dark things going on beneath the surface. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed, please let me know. If you have any requests, please leave them down. No, don't leave them down below. Send me them on Instagram, as I am more likely to read them over there because my comments are getting insane at the moment. There's a lot of you guys, so I'm having a hard time reading them all, but you know what, I'm trying, okay? Cut me some slack. But yeah, if you want to follow me on any of the social medias, please do, as I I post a lot over there if you're interested. If you're not, that's also fine. If you would like to consider subscribing as well, that would be great, but if not, that's also fine, because regardless, I hope to see you in the next video anyway. Stay safe.